Hey folks, Mark Levin here. Now, before we dive in today's episode, I want to talk about something truly valuable, protecting your financial future with gold. It's called diversification. Now, for that, I only trust Advantage Gold. They're the real deal with 5-star service and a sterling reputation. So give them a call today. Call Advantage Gold at 800-900-8000. Tell them Mark Levin sent you. Trust me, you'll thank yourself in the future. Now let's get to the show. Results may vary. Consult with your financial professional.
He's here. He's here. Now, broadcasting from the underground command post, deep in the bowels of a hidden bunker, somewhere under the brick and steel of a nondescript building, we've once again made contact with our leader, Mark Levin.
Mark Levin here. Our number, 877-381-3811, 877-381-3811. The attack from within on our institutions continues. It's one thing to be critical of the Supreme Court or Supreme Court decisions. It's another to try and take out individual justices. And we see what they've tried to do with Alito, and now they're back at Clarence Thomas because he's indicated he took certain trips that were funded by a very close friend of theirs, a billionaire. And for the Democrats, that's the end-all and be-all. And yet it's quite amazing to me, and it's publicly known, as I pull this up, that Carrie Severino at JCN, another day, another insane attempt by the left to smear Justice Thomas with a nothing burger. Until 2023, the Judicial Conference itself said personal hospitality shouldn't be disclosed on these forms. That's why Justice Breyer, who took at least 233 trips, 68 of them overseas, didn't have to disclose any of them. And Justice Ginsburg, who took 157 trips, 28 of them overseas, didn't have to disclose any of them. Just like Justice Thomas didn't. Now, you haven't heard this anywhere on television today. Nowhere. Absolutely nowhere. But she points out, but ultimately Senate Democrats are relentlessly attacking the Supreme Court because they're furious to have a majority in the court who faithfully apply the law and uphold the Constitution. And this, to me, is a coordinated attack. The goal is to undermine the Supreme Court while we have a number of constitutionalists on the court, although I do get nervous about Roberts and Barrett and sometimes Kavanaugh. But that aside, did you know that Justice Breyer took 233 trips, 68 of them overseas, and didn't report a single one? Did you know Ruth Bader Ginsburg took 157 trips, 28 overseas, and didn't report a single one? But Clarence Thomas is unethical because he is reporting them? Well, he didn't before because he didn't have to before. And the flags with Alito, like that's some big deal. I'll give you a big deal. And the media never talks about it. Supreme Court Justice Sotomayor. This is just from last year. Sotomayor's staff prods public institutions that have hosted the justice to buy her memoir or her children's books, works that have earned her at least $3.7 million since she joined the court in 2009. This is a news report. Details of those events, largely out of public view, were obtained by the AP through more than 100 open records requests to public institutions. Now, you didn't hear Durbin jumping up and down, or this clown White House bigot. You didn't hear him talking about it, and you don't hear the media today talking about it. The resulting tens of thousands of pages of documents offer a rare look at Sotomayor and her fellow justices beyond their official duties. In her case, the documents reveal repeated examples of taxpayer-funded court staff performing tasks for the justices' book ventures, which workers in other branches of government are barred from doing. It goes on. Supreme Court staffers have been deeply involved in organizing speaking engagements intended to sell books. Wow. How do you like that? Later in the article, they put in long hours and accommodated the shifting requests of Sotomayor's court staff, that is, these various entities. Then, as the public cost of hosting the event soared almost tenfold, a Sotomayor aide emailed with a different urgent concern. This was the Just Ask Library and Community College officials in Portland, Oregon. So their costs are soaring because Sotomayor is a prima donna. She said the organizers, this is a paid-for court staffer, they didn't buy enough copies of the justice's book, which attendees had to purchase or have on hand in order to meet Sotomayor after her talk. Wow. For an event with 1,000 people, and they have to have a copy of Just Ask to get into the line, 250 books is definitely not enough, the aide said. I. Lee wrote staffers at the Multnomah County Library. Families purchase multiples, and people will be upset if they are unable to get in line because the book required is sold out. So the court taxpayer-funded staff are putting the shoulder on these public libraries and these other places. You folks better make sure that when the justice gets there and talks and so forth, these people better buy a hell of a lot more books if you expect her to sign them. It was not an isolated push. A Sotomayor, as she prepared for commencement weekend at the University of California, Davis Law School, her staff pitched officials there on buying copies of signed books in connection with the event. Before a visit to the University of Wisconsin, the staff suggested a book signing. At Clemson University in South Carolina, school officials offered to buy 60 signed copies before a 2017 appearance. Sotomayor's staff noted that most schools order around 400. Michigan State University asked Sotomayor to come to campus, and in 2018 spent more than $100,000 on copies of her memoir, My Beloved World, to distribute to incoming first-year students. The books were shipped to the Supreme Court, where copies were taken to her chambers by court workers and signed by her before being sent to the school. Wow. How do you like that, Mr. Producer? I don't do that. You know what's funny? I've had 7 #1 New York Times bestseller books, 10 New York Times bestseller books. They always give me this cross on bulk sales. I never do bulk sales. When the Reagan Library has us come, they buy books in bulk, which are sold to the people who show up. That's my bulk sale, which is not a bulk sale. It's really outrageous what they do to me, but look what Sotomayor does here, and I doubt she ever gets that cross put next to her name. But they do this on taxpayer dollars. Sotomayor's publisher, Penguin Random House, also has played a role in organizing her talks, in some cases pressing public institutions to commit to buying a specific number of copies. And it goes on. But there's even more. Penguin Random House. Sotomayor, you know, the great leftist. The New York Post from last year. Supreme Court Justice Sotomayor didn't recuse herself from multiple cases involving a book publisher, Penguin Random House, which paid her more than $3 million and has since 2010, according to a report. The copyright infringement case in which Penguin Random House stood to suffer financial damage if the court ruled unfavorably, were not taken up by the High Court, but justices voted on whether or not to hear the cases. Altogether, Sotomayor earned $3.6 million, turns out $3.7 million, from Penguin Random House and its subsidiaries for agreeing to let them publish her 2013 memoir, My Beloved World, and numerous children's books since then, the Daily Wire reported. The same year that her memoir came out, Sotomayor voted on whether the High Court should take up Aaron Greensberg versus Random House. Her liberal colleagues at the time, Justice Stephen Breyer, recused himself from the case, having also received money from Penguin Random House. The court does not reveal how justices vote in deciding whether to hear arguments in a case. She gets almost $4 million from Penguin Random House. There's a lawsuit brought against them. A copyright lawsuit, a big deal. Breyer recuses and says, well, I can't. I've worked with them. And Sotomayor does not. We're sitting around taking seriously these attacks on Alito on a flag. On a flag. First Amendment right. The flags are his wife's flags, and they try and make a big story out of it. There's a non-story. It's nothing. It's a joke. And then they try and make it look like Clarence Thomas is doing something unethical by reporting these various trips. And between Breyer and Ruth Bader Ginsburg, they took almost 600 trips and never reported a damn one of them, including well over 50, close to 100 overseas. But Thomas, you see, is the problem. Thomas doesn't have any conflict of interest. He didn't take any case that specifically involved anyone who contributed to his trips. You see, ladies and gentlemen, this is how it works. The media are corrupt. The Democrats are sinister. Sinister. And I just saw report done on this. It's all about Thomas and Alito. Not one word about Sotomayor. Nothing. Jackson has issues too, by the way. You know what they are? You know, the first black female justice who couldn't define what a woman is? Her husband makes a small fortune as a consultant for slip and fall lawyers. And you're supposed to report on your disclosure forms the income of your husband and the basic source of the income, which she failed to do. So she had to go back and amend forms because, remember, she was a lower federal court judge and did on several of them, many of them. But nobody's accusing her of unethical conduct, are they? And nor will they. Now, this doesn't mean I will support every decision that comes out of the Supreme Court. My God, I wrote a whole book, Men in Black, How the Supreme Court's Destroying America. That was my first book. And that book focused on how the court, not this court, the book was written many years ago, has gone out of its lane, has driven out of its lane in terms of interpreting the Constitution. And I will continue to criticize the court when I believe it's usurping constitutional authority that has been granted to this branch or that branch or to the people or to the states and so forth. That's legitimate criticism. But these efforts to character assassinate Alito over these flags, or Clarence Thomas for doing what all the other justices did, that's unacceptable. The effort to destroy Brett Kavanaugh when he's nominated, no, I'm not buying that. Clarence Thomas when he's nominated, no. Bob Bork when he was nominated, no. Because this is how the Democrats play. They are Stalinist bastards. That's what they are. and their media mouthpieces for these Stalinist bastards. That's who they are. I'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
Folks, the war on our justice system, the vicious assault on President Trump, has sent our nation into uncharted waters. And trust me when I say things are going to get worse before they get better. I truly believe that. The political turmoil and uncertainty that lie ahead could have severe consequences for our economy and financial markets. But in times of crisis, there's always opportunity. And right now, I see that opportunity in diversification with gold and silver. As these tensions rise and the dollar's future becomes increasingly uncertain, gold has the potential to go even higher. That's why I trust Advantage Gold. They're experts at helping Americans take steps to help safeguard their wealth with precious metals. Call them right now. 800-900-8000. Don't wait. Get their free 2024 gold and silver kit, plus a special Mark Levin discount worth up to $1,300 if you qualify. The future may be unpredictable, but your financial security doesn't have to be. So call Advantage Gold right now. 800-900-8000. There's no risk. There's no pressure. That's 800-900-8000. Get your special Mark Levin discount worth up to $1,300 for qualified customers today. Performance may vary. You should always consult your financial and tax professional. Here's a perfect example. Here's the Washington Compost, which helped, along with the New York Slimes, to cover up the Holocaust. There's nothing to believe that comes out of that rag. And, of course, there's an uprising over there, the left versus the radical left. New documents show unreported trips by Justice Clarence Thomas. That's the title. By Justin Juvenal, Toby Raji. Supreme Court Justice Thomas took 3 previously unreported trips paid for by conservative Texas billionaire Harlan Crow, according to new documentation released Thursday by the Senate Judiciary Committee. My God. Details of the private jet flights between 2017 and 2021 were obtained as part of an investigation the committee has been conducting. The reports of lavish, undisclosed travel and perks provided to Justice by Crow and other wealthy benefactors that have sparked calls for reform. Really? Nothing here about Sotomayor or the late, fantastically great RBG or Breyer. They took hundreds of trips. Okay, let's go on. Crow released the information after the committee issued subpoenas in November for him and conservative activist Leonard Leo to provide information to the body. The subpoenas have never been enforced. Little Dick Dermott, the Senate Judiciary Committee's ongoing investigation into the Supreme Court's ethical crisis. Now look how they are violating separation of powers, and they seek to destroy this court because of the Dobbs decision and other decisions they don't like. This is flat out, frontal, bald-faced intimidation. That's what the effort is, through character assassination. And they're working with the Washington Post and the other sleazy Stalinist rags. Elliot Burke, an attorney for Thomas, said in a statement, the information that Harlan Crow provided to the Senate Judiciary Committee fell under the personal hospitality exception. It was not required to be disclosed by the justice. Now, I just explained that to you folks. It was not required to be reported. Ginsberg didn't report any of it. Breyer didn't report any of it. And yet, here's Thomas from 2017, 2021, no requirement to report it, but he goes ahead and he provides the information, and the committee uses it, gives it to their buddies at the Washington Post, and they're trying to, dirty up Clarence Thomas. The disclosures come after Thomas revealed this month that he failed to report 2 2019 trips to California and Indonesia that were paid by Crow. He didn't have to. It wasn't required. I'll be right back. My fellow Americans, the phony conviction of Donald Trump has sent a clear message. Our country is in deep trouble. Our rule of law is under attack, and the integrity of our elections may well be in jeopardy. In times of political chaos like this, it's crucial to protect your wealth and secure your financial future. That's where my good friends at Advantage Gold come in. Please call them now. 800-900-8000. Get their free 2024 gold and silver kit to help protect your money against times like these with physical, precious metals. Plus, tell them I sent you, and they'll give you a special Mark Levin discount worth up to $1,300 if you qualify. No one can predict the future, but you can prepare for it. Call Advantage Gold today. 800-900-8000. Get your free gold and silver kit right now. Plus, Mark Levin discount worth up to $1,300 for qualified customers today. 800-900-8000. Give it a try. Performance may vary. You should always consult your financial and tax professionals.
Mark Levin says today what the backbenchers will repeat tomorrow. Call Mark at 877-381-3811.
Don't believe this democracy stuff from these Democrats. They hate this country. They hate our governmental system. They want complete monopoly control. They don't believe in separation of powers or limited government. They don't believe in equal branches, balancing one out after the other. They believe in taking over, period, centralizing power. They believe in destroying the franchise while claiming they support it. They don't believe in representative government. They believe in government by the iron fist, the bureaucracy, and executive orders. The Washington Post dutifully reporting what the Democrats want. The committee probe was prompted by reports in ProPublica. Now, ProPublica is funded by radical leftists in San Francisco. It's not really even a news outlet. And other media outlets. Notice? It's like when they use the Hamas numbers, and they don't mention that they're the Hamas numbers. ProPublica, a.k.a. ProPublica, is a radical left-wing front operation. It's not a real media organization, as far as I'm concerned, funded by radical left-wing kooks. But that's okay. So is the Washington Compost when you think about it. Bezos and his sweetheart. The committee probe was prompted by reports in ProPublica and other media outlets that Thomas and Justice Samuel Alito took expensive trips without disclosing them in recent years. They didn't have to disclose them. Now, maybe you think they should have. But why is this an issue now? Why was it an issue when RBG was on the court? Or Breyer was on the court? Or Souter was on the court? Or radical libs were on the court? Why is it only an issue now? We know exactly why. This is justice intimidation. They had their militia out at the justices' homes with bullhorns, like the racists of the 50s and 60s. This phony attorney general, Meritless Garland, wouldn't arrest any of them, despite the fact it's a violation of federal law. It's a felony because they're trying to intimidate the justices. He didn't arrest a single one. They're very busy, arresting everybody from January 6th, even those who did nothing. Oh, and Alito. His wife flew some flags. Oh, my goodness. And she doesn't like the rainbow flag. But she must, whether she likes it or not. Yes, she must. And she flew a flag upside down because of some reprobate neighbor, in protest to the reprobate neighbor who has a foul mouth and a disgusting sign. Oh, she must be an insurrectionist. And, of course, all that means that Justice Alito is crooked, he's an insurrectionist, and he must recuse himself. This is the same media and Democrat Party that's trying to drag Joe Biden across the finish line. They're a man. We don't have to use symbols. We don't have to make references or inferences. Joe Biden was a racist segregationist who opposed integrating our public school system. By the way, I'm waiting for my buddies at ESPN and elsewhere to mention this, to point it out. Maybe they'll have me on to discuss it. Maybe they'll have me on to discuss it. We keep talking about Trump this, Trump that. Blah, 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 blah. Okay, I'm going to tell you what is reality. What's factual. What's factual. The committee probe was prompted by ProPublica. ProPublica is a radical left-wing operation dressed up as a media outfit. And so there's the Washington Compost regurgitating that. It's astonishing that at this late date there continue to be revelations of gifts to Clarence Thomas that he has never disclosed, said Stephen Lubet, a professor and judicial ethics expert at Northwestern University Law School. Excuse me? Never heard of the guy. He's an expert? He's an expert? Wow. I guess he wasn't aware of the personal hospitality exception that enabled Ruth Bader Ginsburg to take hundreds of damn trips and Breyer hundreds more than her. Yes, of course. And how come none of this investigative activity was spurred by Sotomayor, who's shaking down public libraries and colleges and universities for book sales? How come that didn't become a big issue? Durbin, you little bastard. I've told you before. The late, great Senator Fred Thompson told me, as only he could. He said, Mark, there's a lot of interesting senators, some of whom I disagree with strongly, but the most dishonorable senator of all, the most dishonorable is Dick Durbin. I said, why? Because they'll stab you in the back. They'll look you in the eye and say one thing and stab you in the back the next. You know, I miss him a lot. I really do. He was a great man. His wife's a great lady, too. Oh, there's more. Hold on. You know, we got these big Supreme Court decisions coming, so it's not a coincidence that the corrupt media are pushing this stuff out as fast as they can. Look at this. Daily News. Does anybody read that anymore, Mr. Producer? You're in New York. Nobody reads that crap. David Goldliner. New York Daily News, or Goldiner, whatever the hell. Emily Baden said, quote on tape remarks leave no room for doubt that Martha and Alito intentionally wanted to send political messages by flying an upside-down American flag at their Virginia home after January 6th, and a flag often used to support Christian nationalism at their Jersey Shore home. The Daily News. This is the Daily Pravda. The Daily Pravda. That flag has nothing to do with Christian nationalism. It was a flag that was used by patriots and still is. And what the hell are they talking about? Christian nationalism. They're trying to create an impression of Christian nationalism, like white nationalism, like the Klan. That's the Democrat Party. That's their candidate running for president of the United States. That fool. But what do they mean, Christian nationalism? I told you, after they smear the Jews, they'll smear the Christians. That's the way this works. That's how these secularists operate. But you better not say a damn thing about Islamists. No. That's untouchable. That's the third rail. Not Islamists, no. So here they are. The Daily News with a bigoted comment. Bigoted. About Sam Alito and his wife on this flag. Well, they're trying to create the impression that she's bigoted. Emily Baden said, caught on tape remarks leave no room for doubt that Mrs. Alito intentionally wanted to send political messages. So what? She's allowed to. She's not a justice. What is this? Women's rights. You have a right to speak out, unless, of course, you're a conservative. Then you better shut the hell up. To hear her speak about the flags, that was just solidifies what we already know, which is they are meant to display a particular political message. She said on MSNBC, makes it clear that what she's doing with the flags. So what? So what? Baden, who got into a suburban shouting, so they go to the perpetrator. They go to the big mouth neighbor, the big liberal, big mouth neighbor, to get comments on the Alitos. Because that's how the Daily News works. That's how MSNBC works. That just proves us all right that he's lying when he said we don't have any reason behind it. We don't know what it means. Not the most articulate person in the neighborhood either, Mr. Producer, would you say? And no offense, I saw a picture of her. I'll leave it at that. I had to look across the lagoon at a pride flag, said Martha and Alito, so I'm going to send them a message every day, maybe every week. I'll be changing the flag, apparently referring to the so-called appeal to heaven flag she erected at their vacation home. What's wrong with the flag, the appeal to heaven flag? Is that just another thing we're not allowed to do? This is how totalitarianism works. Okay, why don't they give us a list of the words we can use, the flags we can use? Wouldn't that be nice? The jurist's wife is captured admitting that she uses provocative public flags to send what she hopes are powerful right-wing messages to anyone who cares to look. Oh, that's the balanced daily news. Right-wing messages. Not kook left-wing neighbors like this idiot. No, right-wing messages. And what's the right-wing message? A flag. A patriotic flag that all of a sudden now is supposed to be controversial. This is how it works. This is how it works. Well, it doesn't work with me that way, that's for sure. Okay. I thought you needed to know. I thought this needed to be pushed back. These decisions are coming out. I may disagree with these decisions. I may. And that's perfectly right and perfectly fine. I don't know. But that's not what the media are doing. The media are trying to destroy certain justices, the most effective justices, Thomas, Alito, and from time to time, Neil Gorsuch. I'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
Folks, the war on our justice system, the vicious assault on President Trump, has sent our nation into uncharted waters. And trust me when I say things are going to get worse before they get better. I truly believe that. The political turmoil and uncertainty that lie ahead could have severe consequences for our economy and financial markets. But in times of crisis, there's always opportunity. And right now, I see that opportunity in diversification with gold and silver. As these tensions rise and the dollar's future becomes increasingly uncertain, gold has the potential to go even higher. That's why I trust Advantage Gold. They're experts at helping Americans take steps to help safeguard their wealth with precious metals. Call them right now. 800-900-8000. Don't wait. Get their free 2024 gold and silver kit, plus a special Mark Levin discount worth up to $1,300 if you qualify. The future may be unpredictable, but your financial security doesn't have to be. So call Advantage Gold right now. 800-900-8000. There's no risk. There's no pressure. That's 800-900-8000. Get your special Mark Levin discount worth up to $1,300 for qualified customers today. Performance may vary. You should always consult your financial and tax professional. So this book I wrote, my first book, Men in Black, little known information that was dug up by others, which I cite in my book. Let's talk about Thurgood Marshall, huh? What do you say? I know he was the first black justice. I know he was a great litigator in Brown versus Board and so forth. But the truth is the truth. I don't know how many trips Thurgood Marshall took. I don't know what kind of flags he flew, if any. I don't know anything about his wife, even though today's media trashes the wives of conservative Supreme Court justices. That's how they roll. But as I wrote in my book, Thurgood Marshall, appointed by LBJ in 1967, stayed on the court too long. In his final years on the court, he became indifferent to his judicial duties. He reportedly left much of his writing for opinions to his clerks. Sometimes didn't bother to read the briefs submitted by the counsel. Instead, he apparently spent many hours watching television in his chambers, especially soap operas. All of this is demonstrated with footnotes from other sources, investigative sources, many of whom are quite liberal. People magazine had called him a devotee of Days of Our Lives as early as 1982. And he once told fellow Justice William Brennan that you could learn a lot about life from soap operas. Despite the fact that he wasn't quite giving it his all, he didn't want to leave, since he would probably be replaced by a conservative. Quote, but despite poor health in recent years, his eyesight is failing. He wears a hearing aid. He broke his hip in the fall last year. He was determined to keep his seat as long as the likely replacement was another conservative nominee. With cantankerous tongue-in-cheek, Marshall would tell his clerks, if I die, prop me up and keep on voting. In his waning years, Marshall would disparage the framers of the Constitution, and it goes on. Wow. One of the great so-called liberal justices during the New Deal, who was appointed by FDR at a very young age, was William O. Douglas. I believe he was the longest-serving Supreme Court justice. FDR appointed Douglas in 1939. In a particularly bizarre episode, Douglas met a flight attendant on a plane. He's married many times. In fact, he married much younger women, and invited her to visit him at the court where he allegedly physically assaulted her. What? And I quote, just a short time after she had entered Douglas's chambers, members of the staff began hearing strange sounds from inside, shouts, banging furniture, and running feet. Short time later, the office door flew open and out rushed the young woman. Her face all flushed and her clothing badly disheveled, shouting at the startled office staff how outraged and disgusted she was. Douglas, she said, had chased her around his desk, grabbing at her clothes and demanding that they go to a motel immediately for a sexual liaison. Douglas's marriages to young women, his subsequent divorces, created financial hardship for him, so he sought income to supplement his court salary. One significant source of income while he was on the bench came from a questionable source, and I quote, newspaper reports had established that over the years Douglas had earned $101,000 from the foundation of Albert Parvin. Parvin was the former co-owner of the Flamingo Hotel in Las Vegas and a business associate of Meyer Lansky. Meyer Lansky was a top mobster. Ice Pick Willie Alderman and others not usually placed within the category of nice Jewish boys. In the last year on the court, Douglas also suffered at times from delusion. A 1974 stroke incapacitated him at the age of 76 for 2.5 months. Though he told the press he had been hurt in a fall. Afterwards, he slurred his words, couldn't walk, developed fears that people were trying to kill him. Thought he was Chief Justice and spurned pleas that he quit. Things were so bad, the justices themselves took action. Quote, his refusal to step down despite obvious mental and physical problems led colleagues to decide secretly to stop counting his vote in some cases until he finally quit in the insistence of his wife and friends some 10 months after his stroke. Oh, you want to hear more? Oh, I'll tell you more. Look what they're trying to do to Alito and Thomas and Gorsuch. Abe Fortas, LBJ appointed Fortas to the court in 1965. He continued to act as advisor to Johnson while on the court. He supplemented his court salary by making money from a foundation set up by convicted stock swindler. And Fortas resigned from the Supreme Court after it was revealed that while on the bench he had pocketed $20,000 retainer from the foundation of jailed financier Lewis Wolfson. You want to hear more? It's in a book. Alito, his wife flew flags, my God. Clarence Thomas took trips that were not required to be reported. Far fewer trips than Ruth Bader Ginsburg and Breyer. Oh, my goodness. This segment of the podcast is exclusively sponsored by Pure Talk. Pure Talk offers great coverage and can save your family money on your wireless bill every single month. Go to puretalk.com to find the plan that's right for you. Thank you again for listening, and thank you so much for this sponsorship, Pure Talk.
He's here. He's here. Now, broadcasting from the underground command post, deep in the bowels of a hidden bunker, somewhere under the brick and steel of a nondescript building, we've once again made contact with our leader, Mark Levin.
We want to wish President Trump happy birthday today. You know, he's more fit than I am, Mr. Producer. He's probably more fit than you are. It's pretty amazing, don't you think? He's got more energy than anybody I've ever met in my life, despite everything they try to do to him. He's the Energizer president. That's what he is. He's the Energizer president. And it is really an honor for me to know him. And we've gotten to know him, and he's a real class act. Despite the attacks on him, just understand the attacks on him are the same sources of the attacks on Alito and Thomas and everybody else that matters to us. Now, I want to read something and ask you if you've heard this anywhere else. Anywhere. And if you have, thank that person. Thank that organization. Ready for this? Iran is installing and starting cascades of advanced centrifuges. Iran has started up new cascades of advanced centrifuges and plans to install others in the coming weeks after facing criticism of its nuclear program. Do you know what you use these things for? Nuclear-grade material. They are on the move. This is ABC News. That's a big news organization. I haven't seen this anywhere else. Have you, Mr. Producer? I looked on the internet. Nowhere else. Nowhere else. Isn't this a big deal, folks? Isn't it a huge deal? And Biden's offered a fundraiser in Hollywood. Because, you know, he's in touch with the little guy. Dubai, United Arab Emirates. Iran has started up new cascades of advanced centrifuges and plans to install others in the coming weeks after facing criticism of its nuclear program, the United Nations Atomic Watchdog Group said Friday. And I want to remind you that Biden and Blinken were lobbying the UK, France, and Germany not to condemn Iran. But they condemned them, and then Biden decided that we would vote with them. Can you believe that, folks? Spinning up new centrifuges further advances Iran's nuclear program, which already enriches uranium at near weapons-grade levels and boasts a stockpile enough for several nuclear bombs if it chose to pursue them. Chose to pursue them? The hell do they think they're doing this for? The acknowledgement from the International Atomic Energy Agency did not include any suggestion Iran planned to go to higher enrichment. This is what is so disgusting. Everybody knows what Iran's doing. The IAEA knows. They're actually very hawkish on this now, very upset about it. But there's ABC. There's ABC. Did not include a suggestion Iran planned to go to higher enrichment levels amid wider tensions between Tehran and the West and the Israel-Hamas war rages in the Gaza Strip. What? Excuse me? What? Where are you coming from? The IAEA said its inspectors verified Monday that Iran had begun feeding uranium into three cascades of advanced IR-4 and IR-6 centrifuges at its Natanz enrichment facility. Cascades are a group of centrifuges that spin uranium gas together to more quickly enrich the uranium. So far, Iran has been enriching uranium in those cascades up to 2% purity. Iran already enriches uranium up to 60%, a short technical step away from weapons-grade levels of 90%. Now, they held back at 60% because my theory is they're going to do a breakout after the election. They want Biden as president. They're making money off of Biden. Biden is preventing Israel from taking out this nuclear site. Let's be blunt. Iran also plans to install 18 cascades of IR-2M centrifuges at its Natanz and 8 cascades of IR-6 centrifuges at its Fordo nuclear sites. Each of these classes of centrifuges enrich uranium faster than Iran's baseline IR-1 centrifuges, which remain the workhorse of the country's atomic program. It comes after Iran threatened to take action following a vote earlier this month at the IAEA's Board of Governors that censured Iran for failing to cooperate fully with the agency. This is where Biden was lobbying the European countries not to do it. Do you realize those countries have wanted to do it since September, and Biden has tried to block them? Somebody's making money on this, Mr. Producer. Somebody in his family, something's going on here. Al Shamkhani, yabba dabba doo, a former top security official with Iran's theocracy, who still advises Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, wrote on the social media platform X that Tehran remains committed to nuclear safeguards, though it won't bow to pressure. The U.S. and some Western countries would dismantle Iran's nuclear industry if they could, he said. Yeah, that's right. But don't worry, you got Biden in there. He's not going to do a damn thing. How many of you have heard this today? Probably none of you. Shouldn't this be a bigger issue than the Alito flag issue? Or shouldn't this be a bigger issue than Clarence Thomas took a trip that he didn't have to report? The answer is yes. If we had a real news media, how come CNN didn't lead with this, or MSNBC? Why? They're the worst. By the way, tomorrow on Life, Liberty, and Levin, we have Senator Cotton and Ben Domenech. But my opening statement is a repertoire of how Biden lies to us, has lied to us his entire life, lies about small things and big things, and he will do everything he can to lie his way back into the Oval Office. So I hope you'll watch it. And if you have people who are sitting on the fence and they're not sure about any of this, encourage them to watch too. I'm serious. And whatever you do, set your DVR to record it. Now, many of you watch it live, but you never know. And same with Sunday. On Sunday's opening, I take on an issue that needs to be taken on, and that is dementia. What is dementia? What are the 7 stages of dementia? We've touched on this before. And what does Joe Biden have? Which is why they're hiding the audio tapes of his interview with Special Counsel Hur, which is why he won't do many of these media events, which is why he spends 40% of his time on vacation and on and on and on. I do not mock the man. I explain this. But we're a country, a big country, the biggest country, the most powerful country. And so this is reason enough why he shouldn't be president of the United States. But we'll dig deeply into that. And our guest on Sunday, Newt Gingrich and Lee Zeldin, they're great. I hope you'll watch. I hope you'll set your DVRs and so forth. Before we go to the break, here's a little ad I want to play for you. A Trump ad, timeless quotes by Joe Biden. Cut one, go.
We hold these truths to be self-evident. All men and women created by go. You know the thing. America is a nation that can be defined in a single word. I was in the foothills of the Himalayas with Xi Jinping. She knows so long as she is denied, our freedom can never be secured. We'll never forget lying around and that's him lying around, actually. It is noteworthy that the percentage of women who register to vote and cast a ballot is consistently higher than the percentage of the men who do so. End of quote. Repeat the line. I'll lead an effective strategy to mobilize true international effort to pressure.
All right, whatever. We'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
Did you know one of the largest U.S. flags in the state of Georgia stands proudly in Pure Talk's parking lot? To honor that flag, Pure Talk is supporting America's Warrior Partnership in their mission to prevent veteran suicide. For our servicemen and women, the transition to civilian life can be very difficult, especially now. Access to housing, employment, and even their earned VA benefits can be very difficult. That's where America Warriors Partnership steps in by providing real support where and when our vets need it most. And you can help this noble cause when you switch to Pure Talk's 5G service and support this great charity. Through Flag Day, they'll match every dollar donated up to $50,000. Choose a wireless company that shares your values and puts you on America's most dependable 5G network for just $20 a month. Go to puretalk.com puretalk.com/Levin. That's puretalk.com/LEVIN to make the switch. That's puretalk.com/Levin for superior cell phone service. That's half the price of Verizon, AT&T, or T-Mobile, and to help Pure Talk with vets in need. Welcome back, America. The Free Beacon is one of the great sites out there. Really is. And one of the great journalists there is Adam Kredo, who's a friend of mine. And Adam, you've been doing some great reporting. You always do. Tell the American people, what is the Palestine Chronicle and why does it matter?
Sure, I'm happy to, and thanks for having me. It's always great to be with you. So the Palestine Chronicle was a little-known publication until this week, really, that was out there kind of defending Hamas's war on Israel, running propaganda against the Israeli government, accusing it of genocide. But the reason it's got attention now is that apparently one of its writers, a guy who has been published quite a bit on that website, a fellow named Abdallah al-Jamal, he was actually found to be holding Israeli hostages in his home in the Gaza Strip. So eyes quickly focused on that website with people trying to figure out.
So hold on 1 minute. So we have a journalist here, really. He also has ties to Al Jazeera, if I understand, correct?
Mm-hmm. Correct.
He's holding hostages?
Hostages in his home. 3 Israeli hostages. I talked to the Israeli Defense Forces. I wanted to confirm it, and they did. The hostages were held captive by Abdallah al-Jamal and members of his family in their home. And the IDF also told me something that I think we know but bears repeating. It's further evidence of Hamas's deliberate use of civilian homes and buildings in their military operations and, of course, to house hostages.
And there was a Palestinian survey that I was going to get to later, but I'm with you now, so let's hit it now, which says that 67% of the Palestinian civilians support what happened on October 7th and would support Hamas and believes Hamas is going to win. Did you read that?
I did read that, and there was one a couple weeks ago that was actually higher. It was about 70%. So support for the attack has remained steady, and support for Hamas continuing its rule has remained steady. And I think this is borne out in one very particular thing. While Hamas militants on October 7th crossed the border into Israel and conducted a terror attack, thousands more just civilians, quote-unquote civilians, also flooded the border and participated in murder, rape, and torture of Israeli civilians. So I think that shows you the clear evidence that, by and large, those living in the Gaza Strip fully support Hamas.
So we have this Palestine Chronicle in the United States, right, as well as other places. And this journalist is working for them, and he is basically a terrorist because he's holding 3 of the 4 who the Israelis bravely, fought and secured. But you learned more, right?
I did. I looked into this group, and you're right. I think a very important fact here is this is a U.S.-based website. It's registered as a nonprofit, a C3. It gets tax-exempt status by the IRS, and their treasurer and their editor-in-chief are based here in the United States in Olympia, Washington. That's one thing I found. But what I also looked at when I searched their writers, their editor-in-chief, a fellow named Ramzi Baroud, is that they have quite a few ties to the Iranian government and Iranian government propaganda sites. Baroud himself was formerly an editor and executive for Al Jazeera, which we know is controlled by Hamas, now outlawed in Israel for disseminating propaganda and supporting Hamas. And also some of these other writers wrote for outlets that were actually seized by the U.S. government in around 2020 for being part of a massive propaganda effort run by Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, their fighting force. This was a full-blown intelligence and propaganda effort. Those sites were seized by the U.S. government, and we saw their writers also being published on the Palestine Chronicle, this nonprofit.
But these people have influence in the broader media, don't they? I mean, the broader media looks to these entities, these so-called nonprofit groups. They're reporting really on behalf of their propaganda. They're using the propaganda. They're using the Hamas propaganda. We've been infiltrated to put it bluntly, haven't we?
Yeah, I think you make a very fair point that even though a general reader isn't going to know these sites, that journalists who cover the region and just do kind of what I call fly-by coverage, these are the sites they're reading to get information, and they're being spoon-fed pro-Hamas propaganda, anti-Israel propaganda, and this kind of what underpins some of the reporting we see at more major outlets that are relying on sites like this for the reporting, right? They're going there to read a reporter, this guy who held hostages, who's based in Gaza. Well, he must know something. He's based there. So, of course, that's influencing a lot of the U.S. reporters who, as far as I'm concerned, really don't know much about the region but are covering this issue because it's big right now.
What is the Biden administration reaction to all this?
Virtually nothing. I haven't heard a thing from them, even though I've asked the State Department, which I cover primarily. Although it has gotten attention in Congress, I will tell you that quite a few senators have already petitioned the IRS and other federal law enforcement agencies to look into this Palestine Chronicle, to look into its parent company, the People Media Project, this C3 nonprofit that oversees them. And they want, one, the tax-exempt status pulled, and two, an examination of whether these guys may have violated anti-terrorism laws for allegedly providing material support for terrorism, which, of course, we know a lot of nonprofits in the U.S. have been tied to. And when I think you're seeing this type of propaganda be put out there, and by the way, the Palestine Chronicle, after their reporter was killed in this Israeli operation, ran a glowing obituary for him, claimed he's not a militant, he's just an innocent journalist. Hamas employs many innocent journalists, and also this fella also formerly worked for Hamas. He was a spokesman in a various capacity for them, so that's another bit of evidence there for you. But I think lawmakers are finally beginning to look at it. I think these campus protests that are going on have spurred lawmakers to look into the funding networks. Where are these nonprofits getting their money, and who are the people bankrolling it? That's going to be a big topic going forward, and I don't think this is going to fade from the congressional purview.
You know, I don't think it'll be a big topic if the Democrats win the House. I really don't, because they don't give a damn.
No,
in fact,
I wouldn't be shocked. Yeah.
But let me ask you this. Journalists in our country, the Jake Fake Tappers, others, have they reported on any of this?
No, you've seen very few reports about this. In fact, I did see CNN and the Palestine Chronicle actually citing CNN as evidence that the Israelis are lying about this writer, that he was not a hostage taker, he was an innocent, his family is innocent. How Israeli hostages got into their home, who knows? But they cited that on their own website as evidence that the Israelis are just making this up. So you see larger media outlets like a CNN lending credibility to the idea purely that Israel is lying about this. When we have all the evidence, you just need to look at it.
Boy, oh boy. I just feel since October 7th, and we always knew it, but everybody's out of the closet now. All the Jew haters and anti-Semites, all the Israel haters, America haters. It's in our streets. It's at the White House over the weekend, and the vandalism, the violence, the threats. Hardly looks like America anymore, Adam Kredo. I want to thank you, the wonderful folks at the Free Beacon. Keep it up, and God bless you, my friend.
It's always my pleasure. Great to be with you.
He's a great, serious, real reporter. We'll be right back. Did you know one of the largest U.S. flags in the state of Georgia stands proudly in Pure Talk's parking lot? To honor that flag, Pure Talk is supporting America's Warrior Partnership in their mission to prevent veteran suicide. For our servicemen and women, the transition to civilian life can be very difficult, especially now. Access to housing, employment, and even their earned VA benefits can be very difficult. That's where America Warriors Partnership steps in by providing real support where and when our vets need it most. And you can help this noble cause when you switch to Pure Talk's 5G service and support this great charity. through Flag Day. They'll match every dollar donated up to $50,000. Choose a wireless company that shares your values and puts you on America's most dependable 5G network for just $20 a month. Go to puretalk.com/Levin. That's puretalk.com/LEVIN to make the switch. That's puretalk.com/Levin for superior cell phone service. That's half the price of Verizon, AT&T, or T-Mobile, and to help Pure Talk with vets in need.
Yes, it's true that Mark Levin is the fastest growing radio show in America. The Mark Levin Show is on at 877-381-3811.
First of all, I want to say Happy Father's Day to all the fathers out there. My father, my father-in-law, and so forth, both of whom are gone, but nonetheless. George Stephanopoulos says, first question that should be asked in this debate, coming up in a few weeks, should be really directed at Donald Trump, who won the last election. I say, why stop there? Who won the election in 2016, 2004, and 2000? Now, ladies and gentlemen, I have about a half hour worth of Democrats denying all those election results. But I just want to give you a little bitsy, itsy taste of it. So the next time one of these clowns brings it up, you'll know how to respond. Cut to, go.
You can run the best campaign. You can even become the nominee. And you can have the election stolen from you.
How can you win with Russian interference, though?
That's a real
what I'm
thing.
scared about in 2020.
But rightly.
Because I think he's an illegitimate president that didn't really win. So how do you fight against that in 2020?
You are absolutely right.
He's an illegitimate president in my mind.
Would you be my vice presidential candidate? Folks, look, I absolutely agree.
Trump didn't actually win the election in 2016. He lost the election, and he was put into office because the Russians interfered.
Russia interfered with our election, attacked our democracy for the sole purpose of artificially placing someone at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. They were successful.
Trump knows he's an illegitimate president.
The president-elect, although legally elected, is not legitimate.
I don't see this president-elect as a legitimate president.
You said you believe that Russia's interference altered the outcome of the election.
I do. We have a president who, if in fact it is proven, has been assisted by the Russians and may in fact not be a legitimate president.
The one thing that Trump is fearful of when it comes to his being president is that finally we will see how illegitimate his victory actually was.
I have an objection.
I object to the 15 votes from the state of North Carolina.
I object because people are horrified.
He's an illegitimate president.
Our election was hijacked. There is no question. Congress has a duty to hashtag protect our democracy and hashtag follow the facts.
John Lewis is completely right. There is a cloud of illegitimacy around the election of Donald Trump. The Russians interfered with his election. James Comey and the FBI interfered with his election. The fake news industry interfered with his election.
Trump knows he's an illegitimate president who got illegitimate foreign help.
Do you believe Trump is a legitimate president?
What I believe is that there's no question that the outcome of this election was affected by the Russian interference.
There absolutely is a cloud of illegitimacy.
So that legitimacy is in question, yes.
So that was a very tainted election, and in that sense, it's illegitimate.
Why do you think the president is going to such great lengths to essentially prove that he beat you?
Because he knows he didn't. He knows he's an illegitimate president.
Stolen emails, stolen drone, stolen election. Welcome to the world of unprecedented Trump.
So do you believe President Trump is an illegitimate president?
Based on what I just said, which I can't retract.
He tweeted in February 2018, quote, "The more we learn about the 2016 election, the more illegitimate it becomes. America deserves to know whether we have a fake president in the Oval Office."
The Russian attempt to have the election, and frankly, the FBI is weighing in on the election, I think makes his election illegitimate.
There was a widespread understanding that this election was not on the level. We still don't know what really happened, Isaac. I mean, there's just a lot that I think will be revealed, history will discover, but you don't win by 3 million votes and have all this other shenanigan stuff going on and not come away with an idea like, whoa, something's not right here.
It seems to me that there's a cloud of illegitimacy that continues to hang over 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue.
The outcome of the election was affected by their interference, and now we need to know, to what degree, if any, the Trump campaign was actually in collusion with with Russia.
He knows he's an illegitimate president, so of course he's obsessed with me, and I believe that it's a guilty conscience.
We actually won the last presidential election, folks. They stole the last presidential election.
And Al Gore won that election. I think he won it anyway.
Actually, I think I carried Florida.
Al Gore won the election nationwide and also in Florida, but the Supreme Court ruled the other way.
Al Gore got more votes, but not enough to stay out of the Supreme Court, where President Bush was elected 5-4.
Bush versus Gore. A court took away a presidency.
If all the votes were counted in Florida, that Al Gore would be president today and George Bush would be back in office.
I come from Florida, where you and others participated in what I call the United States coup d'etat.
In 2013, according to reports...
All right, that's enough. I needed to play enough so you can get the drift, and there is a ton more. A ton more. These people never accept elections when Republicans win, and when Republicans win, they're always trying to impeach them and remove them. And during the course of elections, they always try to scare the public. At least in modern times, from Barry Goldwater all the way to Trump, referring to them as Hitler, as dictators. You have to fear them. I love the way they cite Reagan now. This is the kind of man we really need. They hated Reagan. They wanted to impeach Reagan. Iran-Contra matter. They tried to scare the hell out of everybody. People don't remember. I was there. I remember every minute of it. They said he was going to create a nuclear fall, I think it was. He was a very dangerous man. They try all these things all the time. The difference is, back then, at least the media tried to pretend that they were legitimate. Today, there's no pretense whatsoever. None. They're all in. They're in the tank. And the media basically is filled with these radical left-wing Democrats, Islamists, and Marxists. It just is. Who don't give a damn about the country. I know who they are. They work in the shadows with the Democrats, the think tanks. They work with each other. They're the same mindset. Completely same mindset. We have Joe Biden wandering off. The White House puts out the spin, and if you want to know what the spin is, you watch Joe Scarborough because he regurgitates it every day. Here it is. Cut 5, Mr. Producer. Go.
Well, you know, Nika, it needs to be said. I mean, you have Joe Biden here with a schedule that would be brutal for anybody.
Oh my gosh.
Any president of any age going to Europe, you know, a couple times on D-Day and spending 5 days in France, going over to the G7.
In the middle of the personal struggles.
In the middle of the personal struggles, the Hunter trial. And yesterday, I even critics were saying that he did a strong job, very good job representing the United States, even though, again, we have some cheap fakes that the RNC, once again, spreading vicious lies about Joe Biden. But that's who they are.
Do you believe this? He doesn't even have to pay for this. It's getting bad, really bad over there, isn't it, Rich? I mean, they don't even mind humiliating themselves for all times. I just posted, or retweeted, I guess we call it, something that was posted about what Joe and Mika said about the laptop. That history will show you people, me and others, to be idiots and fools because of this phony laptop. It's really quite amazing when you think about it. Jill Biden. She's in Wisconsin yesterday, and I'm going to tell you something, and I'm going to be very honest with you. There's something about her that's very troubling to me. You have a husband who's obviously quite ill, and I'm not mocking this, okay? He's obviously quite ill. People have impairments, physical impairments, mental impairments, and you don't make fun of that stuff. I don't. But obviously Joe Biden has dementia, okay? There's just no question about it. And she knows it better than anybody else. She knows it. But she likes the trappings of power. She likes the service. She likes the airlines and the helicopters and the driving and the this and the that. She loves the trappings of power. And I will say this, apparently more than her husband, who she should be protecting from all this. I know my wife would do that with me. Wouldn't your wife do that with you, Rich? They'd say, what are you doing? Enough already. Plus, you're not up to being president. Here she is at an event in Wisconsin yesterday. Cut 6, go.
This election is most certainly not about age. Joe and that other guy.
Look how disrespectful she is. She's the First Lady of the United States. Seriously. It's one thing if Biden and Trump duke it out. I've never heard Melania speak like this, ever. Or Laura Bush. Or all the classy First Ladies. Go ahead.
The same age. Let's not be fooled. Joe isn't one of the most effective presidents of our lives in spite of his age, but because of it.
Wait a minute. Did she just say Joe isn't? Joe isn't one of the most effective presidents of our lives in spite of his age, but because... You want to play that again, Rich?
This election is most certainly not about age. Joe and that other guy are essentially the same age. Let's not be fooled. Joe isn't one of the most effective presidents of our lives in spite of his age.
She said isn't. So I agree with her. She isn't. He isn't. One of the most... Folks, it has nothing to do with age. It has to do with the effects of age. You have men in their 50s who age as presidents. They go in looking one way and they come out looking much older. They're trying to pull wool over our eyes. They're trying to make us believe we don't see what we see, we don't hear what we hear, but we do see what we see and we do hear what we hear. And this effort by her, the family, friends, colleagues, the staff, the cabinet, the vice president, the Democrats in Congress, by the media, to try and pull wool over the eyes of the American people, the Attorney General of the United States with a phony privilege in order to prevent us from hearing the audio of the interview of Biden by the special counsel with absolutely no constitutional basis whatsoever. This whole effort to protect him when you watch the way he walks from the helicopter and back, or to keep him from the press as much as possible. Yes, he might have a good hour or two when he's giving the State of the Union, or a good hour or two when he's doing the debate, but the presidency's not about a good hour or two. It's about 24/7. And 40% of the time, he's not even there. This is the biggest cover-up in American history. But we all see it. I'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
Did you know one of the largest U.S. flags in the state of Georgia stands proudly in Pure Talk's parking lot? To honor that flag, Pure Talk is supporting America's Warrior Partnership in their mission to prevent veteran suicide. For our servicemen and women, the transition to civilian life can be very difficult, especially now. Access to housing, employment, and even their earned VA benefits can be very difficult. That's where America Warriors Partnership steps in by providing real support where and when our vets need it most. And you can help this noble cause when you switch to Pure Talk's 5G service and support this great charity. Through Flag Day, they'll match every dollar donated up to $50,000. Choose a wireless company that shares your values and puts you on America's most dependable 5G network for just $20 a month. Go to puretalk.com/Levin. That's puretalk.com/LEVIN to make the switch. That's puretalk.com/Levin for superior cell phone service. That's half the price of Verizon, AT&T, or T-Mobile, and to help Pure Talk with vets in need. New York Post. Cops bust heavily armed New York City man who expressed jihadist views was planning something very bad. Source. We had ISIS coming in here. We've got these murderous Venezuela gang members coming in here. We have the murderous MS-13 gang members coming in here. We've got military-age single men coming in from communist China. We've got scores and scores of people coming in from the Middle East who we don't know, who haven't been vetted. Again, military-age men. Joe Biden is creating a scenario here that this country is going to be dealing with for decades. 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 Cops bust heavily armed NYC man who expressed these jihadist views. We're lucky the cops busted them. We're lucky the FBI got these 8 ISIS jihadists. I mean, it's luck right now. Don't get me wrong. It's tough police work, but by luck, I mean there's so many out there. The Power Hour is next. I shall return.
He's here. Now, broadcasting from the underground command post, deep in the bowels of a hidden bunker, somewhere under the brick and steel of a nondescript building, we've once again made contact with our leader, Mark Levin.
Hello, America. Mark Levin here. Our number, 877-381-3811, 877-381-3811. Don't forget, please watch and set your DVR. 8:30 p.m. Saturday Eastern, 8:30 p.m. Sunday Eastern, obviously whatever time zone you're in, 2 brand new Life, Liberty, and Levin programs. Great guest, great opening. Very important. You know, for many people, it's become appointment television, just like this has become appointment radio. Now, what am I talking about? You look at the radio slot I have, 6 to 9 p.m. Eastern Time, with some variations here and there. That was considered the worst, what we call radio landscape, in the 24-hour period, because of all the other activities, all the distractions, all the family time, which obviously is not a distraction, and so forth. And so, I guess it was 23 years ago, when I was asked to do this, there was not a lot of hope that it would be very successful. They figured, you know, we'll put him in there, he should do a good job, we put him on the weekend, he was doing very well, and so forth and so on. But we created a syndicated program like no other. And for many stations, it would be Rush, Sean, and Levin. And in the radio profession, they used to call that Killers or Murderers Row. 9 hours. Obviously, our wonderful Rush is not with us anymore, but there is our buddy Sean and me. And by the way, other really good hosts. Some syndicated, some regional, some local. So I'm not in any way disparaging any of them. And many of them are my friends. But this time slot in particular was always considered the most difficult. WABC's been around a long time. And they tried everything and virtually everybody. And the truth be told, one day, I can't do this for the rest of my life, one day, if I'm not here doing this anymore, unfortunately for the radio industry, they'll see what happens to this time slot. It's a very difficult time slot. And unfortunately, I don't think it'll do as well as it's doing now. And I don't say that to boast. I say that out of concern for the industry. See, I believe in radio. I believe in AM and FM radio. I'm also all for new technologies and new ways for people hearing what others have to say, what I have to say, other platforms. The audience controls these various industries and these new industries. I don't control it. No company controls it. It's like the ocean. The waves do what the waves do. Sometimes they're rough, sometimes they're not. Sometimes they pull in one direction, sometimes they pull in another direction. It's not like you can change it. And I'm talking about from a platform point of view. And so you try to go where the audience is, and some of us, the audience, may go where we are. But this was a very, very difficult time slot to fill. And what you'll see is even people who compete with me in this time slot, also very good people. Well, I don't know them all, but some of them are very good people. They have some difficulty. Number one, competing with you, and that is in my program. But number two, again, competing with all the other things that are going on. There's a lot of things going on right now while I'm on the radio. It's not necessarily the case hours before the program or hours after the program. And so it's been a great honor to do this and to make a big difference in this particular time slot. Mr. Producer, you remember people were coming and going. They were trying things, trying people, 2 hosts, 1 host, female host, young host, older host. It just wasn't cutting it. Because the audience will tell you what they want. You can't tell the audience what they want. The audience will tell you what they want. That is, if you're a radio station that is interested in, supporting what it is the public wants. And that's what public licenses are all about. Anyway, I'm just making that point because I view the same way as the American people. When you have the Democrats trashing more than half of the nation, in my view, because they won't go along with the Democrats, they won't go along with Biden, because we support Donald Trump, because we are conservatives, we love our Constitution, our Declaration, we love our founders and our framers, we love our history, we love our flag, we want nothing to do with the Marxists and the Islamists and all the other ists. That's who the American people are. So when you're running for office by trashing the American people, or trying to lord over the American people, or trying to fundamentally transform the country, my hope is the audience, that is the public, won't follow. That's why they have to raise $1 billion to run lies and ads, attack ads and so forth, to try and persuade you that they are not who they are, and that we, Trump, us, that we are who they are. I hope that makes some sense. That's the point. The American people are not stupid. Well, at least half of us aren't stupid. Radio listeners are the smartest of all listeners. All of them. In my audience, you are the smartest of the smartest, or you wouldn't be here. Or you wouldn't be here. That's why you don't tolerate Biden. You don't tolerate the lies. You want nothing to do with it. Here we have Breitbart. Joe Biden protects more than 860,000 migrants from deportation with temporary amnesty. So this executive order he issued is all bullcrap. The busiest corridor on the southern border, he excludes people from 100 countries in a memo. Of course, the media have covered that up. And then he gives temporary amnesty to almost 1 million aliens, illegal aliens. Then he's flying 500,000 illegal aliens into the country. This isn't a man who wants to secure the border. This isn't a man who gives a damn about the United States or we the people. He just doesn't. And you know what? We don't have to answer the why question anymore. We don't even have to try and figure it out. We just need to know what he is, and that's what he is, and that's what he's doing. And he's got his media. He's got his media. Look at this Nicole Wallace. She has the brain of a cucumber. She was a hemorrhagic for the Republican establishment in Washington. Now she's a hemorrhagic for the Democrat establishment. She found out, like so many of these people do, so many of these grifters do, that it pays more for them to be on the dark side than it does for them to stand up for liberty. And she's on MSLSD yesterday She gets no ratings. No ratings. And she says this, cut 7, go.
Some of the law enforcement officials who protected the Capitol, the Democratic and Republican members who work inside of it, have become well known to our viewers, people like Carrie Dunn and Officer Fanone and Officer Ganell and others. I imagine some that we don't know as well were there today when Donald Trump was there. We likened it to an arsonist going and admiring something he sought to burn down.
You know, that's pretty funny that I use that arsonist line all the time, don't I, Mr. Producer? She's a plagiarist, I guess, just like Joe is. And so, you know, it's like a person who was a chain smoker and they stopped smoking, and my father was a chain smoker, but they become very, like, activists, and my dad never was, but you understand my point. So here's a person who was an establishment Republican, now she's a Democrat, and she's vile. She's literally vile. And I'm not going to play her guest. Her guest is Adam Schiff. She brings on Adam Schiff. Talk about arsonists. I'll be right back.
Mark Levin. Mark Levin, the thunder on the right. Call in now, 877-381-3811.
Governor Doug Burgum, North Dakota. We've never spoken, have we, sir?
Mark, it's great to be with you. Thanks for having me on.
I don't think we've ever spoken. Come to think of it.
I think it's the first time, and I'm excited.
Me too. You're doing a great job out there. Now, Doug Burgum, one of the big issues in this country is energy. The ideologues who are running our country apparently don't like energy. They talk about wind and water and electricity, but they're destroying all those things that are used to produce electricity. Where are we headed with this crowd?
Well, I think we're living through a period of climate extremism because it's the only way you can make sense of policies that are inflationary. They drive up costs for Americans at home. They hurt our ability to build entire new industries like artificial intelligence, where we need more power. And then, of course, when you're trying to shut down or kill the U.S. energy industry, it doesn't reduce demand, it just reduces supply. So that drives the price up. Electricity's up 30% under Joe Biden. Gas prices are up, as everybody knows. But the worst part about all of this is it erodes our national security, because the Biden energy policies are the things that are empowering and funding the two countries that we're in proxy wars with. Russia and Iran are both have got record oil revenue coming in because of the Swiss cheese-like sanctions we have. And so it's other than being bad for U.S. Consumers, bad for U.S. competitiveness, bad for our future economic growth, and really helpful to our enemies. Other than that, it seems like they've got great energy policies. I'm being a little sarcastic, but it's like you can't even figure out who's writing the Biden energy policy, because it hurts America and helps our adversaries.
Now, Doug Burgum, they're pushing everything towards this electrical grid. The electrical grid is not expanding. Matter of fact, it's got some hiccups there and here and there. Aren't they dragging our country towards sort of a California system, or even worse, with brownouts and blackouts, because our grid, our electrical grid, simply can't handle what these people are trying to do?
No, I mean, there's no common sense about the policies where they're artificially stimulating demand through subsidies for electric vehicles, rules and regulations at the federal and some state level that say you can't have a gas stove, it's got to be an electric stove, federal mandates about buildings having to go all electric. So they're artificially stimulating demand through trillions of dollars of subsidies, where it's not tax and spend, it's borrow the money from our adversaries and spend the money here around, again, an ideology to do that. And then then there's another agency. At the same time, we're stimulating artificial demand. There's other agencies that are saying you've got to shut down baseload electricity in this country because we're concerned about the environmental effects of that. And so we've got simultaneously the same government lowering supply and then subsidizing demand. And then we layer on top of that, I spent 30 years in tech and technology. The computing power of our nation was about 1% of our electrical system went towards computational issues, 1% of the total percentage of power. for electrical power. And, now it's climbed over 2%. When AI comes in and is foundational and will change every job, every company, every industry, from healthcare to education to every industry to government, the demand from computing could go from 2% to 10%. We had a 5-fold increase. So again, demand is going to go up from real demand, artificial demand. Meanwhile, Biden administration says, hey, let's have 500,000 EV charging stations. We need those. Of course, back in the 20s and 30s, this nation created over 300,000 gas stations without one dime of federal assistance. The market came in and did that. So now we've got these incredible, trillions of dollars of costs associated around this green fantasy that they're pursuing. And I say it's a fantasy because if you're going to go all electric, we're buying all the batteries from China, and China controls 85% of the rare earth minerals, and they're the world's largest polluter, and they're opening up a coal plant, 2 to 4 a month. They have 240 in the permit line. So you add all that up, and we are heading towards Biden brownouts and blackouts as early as 2025. There'll be less supply. There'll be more demand. Our grid won't be able to handle it. You can't get a transmission line permitted in this country. It's basically a self-made disaster thanks to the current Biden administration approaches. And, of course, the alternative, President Trump, who campaigns regularly that he's going to solve all these issues and stop us on this economic and energy martyrdom that the Democrats have us on.
So just from a pedestrian point of view, my point of view, at least two things will happen. Number one, they will impoverish the country because energy is at the center of everything. They will impoverish the country. And number two, they'll create this man-made economic pandemic, and they will empower government and the police state. Do I have that about right, those two issues?
Well, you do, and certainly on the step one, the impoverishment's already happening because we've got higher gas prices, higher electrical prices, and of course, who did that hurt the most? It hurts the working poor. It hurts those people that have to commute, can't afford a house close to where they have a job. It's drives up the cost of everything. There's an energy component. I mean, if your listeners, Mark, the millions there are that are listening, look around, look at the carpet around you. If you're in a car, look at your home. Everything around you, every product that you can see with your eyes right now, listening to the show, has got an energy component. Mm-hmm. So when the Biden administration drives energy costs up, it raises the price of everything. So the impoverishment is absolutely happening. And of course, Mark, you understand how markets work and how the opposition thinks here, which is when they have a crisis, they're going to solve it with more regulation, not less. So they will come in with federal solutions to try to, quote, solve the issue, and we need innovation, not regulation, to solve this problem.
I see the federal government imposing all kinds of rules on the average person, what days they can drive and can't drive, what they can drive, how big their homes can be. I see monitoring of the mileage people take, all in the name of, the community and what's right. And we saw how quickly this occurred in 2020, and I just can't imagine that we'd be able to stop them in any effective way if they start putting out these mandates, because basically what they're trying to control here, Governor, is us. We, the individual, from prospering, correct?
Absolutely. And you have to look no further to places like California to see the future, where they were floating ideas in their legislature where they would charge more for electricity for a home on a block where the income levels were higher. Well, that would involve such an invasion of privacy. You'd have to go down the block. PG&E would have to figure out who on that block has got higher reported dual income living in that household, and then charge them more. Well, I mean, of course, that makes no sense at about 100 different levels, but I guess the same thing. It's, then like, hey, when you go to the grocery store, you're going to have to show a card that shows your income levels, and you got to pay more for bananas and milk and bread than someone else. So they think they can outsmart markets. They can't, and they're creating, again, as you say, a state of affairs that would be, I just view it as economic or energy martyrdom in terms of what they'd be doing for our country.
That's Doug Burgum. I'm Mark Levin, and the governor has graciously agreed to stick with us another segment. We'll be right back. We're here with Governor Doug Burgum of North Dakota. Governor, you spent most of your life in business, creating businesses, expanding businesses, developing businesses. Then you decided to get into politics. Tell the American people a little bit about yourself.
Well, thank you, Mark. Yeah, no, I grew up in North Dakota in a small town. There, I grew up like a lot of kids in North Dakota. Every job I had all the way through college was a job where I took a shower at the end of the day, not at the beginning of the day, working on farm, ranch, even worked as a chimney sweep to help pay my way through college, worked construction, worked at the local grain elevator. My dad was a World War II Navy vet, fabulous guy. Came down with brain tumor when I was a seventh grader, passed away when I was a freshman in high school, middle of that year. My mom was a stay-at-home mom. She was, school board, church board, active in the community, but she had to go back to work. I understand what economic insecurity looks like for, working mothers with 3 kids. But I wouldn't trade that growing up for anything. I mean, 2 amazing parents that, set me with the kind of small town values of hard work, a place where neighbors help neighbors, and a place that, understood and appreciated how special America is. And then after grad school and college, I was working at, saw my first computer with a VisiCalc early spreadsheet, and I was like, wow, that's going to change the world. I had a small amount of farm acres, dryland wheat farm in North Dakota, not enough to farm myself, but I inherited that from my dad. And I mortgaged it, something you never do. Literally bet the farm, Mark, with that land, and used that as an investment for seed capital for a company called Great Plains Software. And we took that little startup with 10 people, and we were 18 years later. We were an overnight success story. Lots of up and downs, like every small business has. But we grew that business to we had at the time when we got acquired 18 years later, we had 2,000 team members. We had 1,200 in Fargo, 400 rest of North America, 400 rest of the world. I had people and customers, hundreds of thousands of customers around the world in all these countries, people that didn't have the right to vote, didn't have the right to bear arms, didn't have the right to, for freedom of religion. So at a very young age, I got very, a clear understanding that America is really a special place and definitely something worth fighting for. So when they after completing almost 3 decades in the technology business, creating jobs and building companies, when there was an open seat for governor in North Dakota, ran, and it was the same year that President Trump was running as an outsider. We both got elected for the first time in November of 2016, and it's been an honor to serve the state of North Dakota.
Now, you're in the running for vice. I'm not going to ask you a stupid question like, you think you'll make it or something like that. But my question is, you've spent a lot of time with Donald Trump. I take you get along with him very, very well. Otherwise, he wouldn't be considering you as a potential vice president. And when you're around Donald Trump, what are the strengths that you see with Donald Trump?
Well, the first thing I would say is, having served as a governor under President Trump and under President Biden, anybody who's a governor in our nation that had a chance to experience that, just like any consumer at home, we've had a chance to see the difference. It's night and day. President Trump's like a beautiful breeze at your back. We were cutting regulation, cutting taxes, free markets, pushing power back to the states. He understands that the states created the federal government, not the other way around. And that was fantastic. The collaboration with the administration, supporting us as a state, supporting innovation as the solution to our challenges, creating jobs, doing all the things he was doing. And then now, under Biden, life. I have the same job description. I'm still the governor of North Dakota, but all we do now is hire lawyers and sue the federal government. We're fighting over 30 different federal rule mandates to try to do that. So part of why we're out, the First Lady and I, campaigning and supporting President Trump is because it's the best thing for North Dakota. It's the best thing for our country. It's the best thing for our working people. But now, since January, when I've had a chance to spend more time with him, the last administration was like a very professional relationship between a president and a governor. And of course, the First Lady, very engaged in her platform of reducing the shame and stigma of the disease of addiction after she, battled addiction for 2 decades and now has been in recovery and is a, wonderful advocate for that. Now, since January, when we've, endorsed the president after we dropped out of the president race, I endorsed him in 2016, I endorsed him in 2020, now we're endorsing him again this year. To spend this time with him and see him, what are the attributes, Mark? The guy is I knew tech CEOs, back when we were building companies that worked hard. No one works harder than Donald Trump. This guy has got a schedule. I've been with him when he's, doing 16, 18 hours a day, flying around the country, doing event after event after event. I've seen him. I spent a day with him when he was stuck in the crazy trial in New York. And then from there, he went to, meet with the prime minister of another country. And then he went to have a roundtable. Then he went to a fundraiser. And then after the fundraiser, he was making phone calls to business leaders and others around the world, then gets up and does the thing. I don't know when the guy sleeps, but he is incredible in how hard he works. He listens. He's curious. He's everything that they don't tell you on the news. If every American could see what I've seen of him up close right now and the depth of his caring and how he cares for the forgotten man, the forgotten woman in this country, this election would be over right now.
Well, Governor, I have to tell you, you're very impressive. We've never talked before. I can see why President Trump finds you impressive as well. I think your knowledge on business is very, very good. You're obviously a capitalist, which I am too, and you understand the energy industry and development and investment and capital, all these things that the Biden administration doesn't give a damn about. There's a difference between building an economy based on ideology, which is a disaster, and building an economy based on individual liberty and capitalism, which is what creates wealth and has for this country. And I just want to say, we really are at a loggerheads, whether it's the economy, whether it's the border, whether it's our constitutional system. All these issues are on the line in this election. And do you think enough Americans, as you travel the country and so forth, and in your state of North Dakota, do you think enough Americans really understand so much is on the line this election?
I wish I could say that we were safely in the zone where everybody understood the consequences of this. I think that there's enormous support. I mean, whether I'm at the rally at Wildwood with 100,000 plus people, someone asked me the demographic of the people that were out there cheering on President Trump, and whether it's there or whether it's in Nevada, whether it's in Arizona, whether it's in Minnesota, I've been all these places with them, in California even. The people that are showing up are job creators and working families. That's who's showing up. It's people, they understand it. But in our nation right now, to win an election, we don't not only need every Republican, so that's why it's exciting to see that, the President Trump in D.C. yesterday consolidating the Republican Party, the RNC, everybody getting on one page. Our opposition has always held together, even through their differences. But now we're getting that part organized, but we've got to get independents, because there aren't enough Republicans to elect a president. We've got to get we've got to get everybody there that understands that. And the good news is that President Trump's winning across every demographic, because inflation hits everybody. It hits everybody in it doesn't matter whether you're a Republican, Independent, or Democrat, you're getting hit by inflation. You're getting hit by higher electric prices. You're getting hit by higher food prices. And I think that's a wake-up call for everything that you've said, Mark, about, they can't. I mean, the Soviet Union proved back in 1989 that you can't at a federal level, organize and run an economy. And our economy is over 20 times larger than what the Soviet economy was back then. So they couldn't organize a small economy. We can't organize the largest economy in the world through a bunch of rules and regulations. We've got to have free markets. We've got to have freedom for individuals. We've got to have flows of capital and labor that allow innovation to occur. Innovation has always been at the heart of American greatness, and we can thrive again, but only if we have someone like President Trump, who's a business guy who understands that. President Trump has created more jobs than Joe Biden and Vice President Harris combined, because I think the answer between the two of them might be zero in terms of job creation. And I don't think anybody should be president of this country unless they've actually worked and signed the front of a paycheck and not just the back of one.
Yeah, you're right. Those two have been on the government payroll their entire lives. Well, Governor, we appreciate it very much. We hope you'll come back, and good luck, and be safe out there.
Well, would love to come back, Mark. And again, thank you for everything that you do, because listening to you, helping explain the connection between our constitutional freedoms, our economy, the prosperity and the safety of our nation, you tell it in a way where Americans understand it, and I just want to say grateful for you. It's been great listening over the years and fun to be on your show for the first time.
Well, that's very, very kind of you, sir. I appreciate it. God bless you, and we definitely want you to come back.
Likewise. Same to you.
All right.
Thank you, Mark.
take care of yourself. Doug Burgum. Boy, he's impressive, Mr. Producer. Mr. Producer keeps telling me I like him. I do, too. There's nothing not to like, to be perfectly honest with you. We'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
We want to wish President Trump a very, very happy birthday. He turned 78. If you ask me, he's a man who's got the energy of somebody who is in his 40s or 50s. I've never seen anything like this. You heard Doug Burgum say the same thing. Everybody says the same thing. I think he's actually running a very brilliant campaign right now. He's unifying the Republican Party, those parts of it that want to be unified. There's always going to be a handful of, naysayers and the like, but they don't matter. I think the issues are strong that he has, certainly versus Biden. He's raising a good sum of money, which he's going to need to counter the horrendous lies and that Biden and his party and the media are going to tell. He's doing everything he can, but it's really up to us, isn't it? There are millions and millions of us. Millions and millions of us. This week, and talk to people. Persuade people. Convince people. Word of mouth means everything. Here it is, Friday evening. We go to America every Friday in honor of you. Here we go. don't forget Life, Liberty, and Levin tomorrow night, Saturday night, and Sunday night, 8 p.m. Eastern. I hope you'll set your DVRs this evening so you don't forget. I'm telling you, these are great programs, and I'll do them as long as you watch them. If you don't watch them, I'll stop. But thank you. We salute our armed forces, police officers, firefighters, emergency personnel, and our truckers and the men and women in Ukraine and Israel. Good night, Spritey. Good night, Griffey. Good night, Pepsi. Good night, Smokey. Good night, Zelda. Good night, Gigi. Good night, Indy. Good night, Patton. Good night, Rory. Good night, Barney. Good night, Marty. So many beautiful little baby dogs in our lives. Good night, Dad. Good night, Mom. Good night, Leo. Good night, Joe. Good night, Teddy and Lou and Bernie and so many others out there. Have a wonderful weekend. Thank you all. God bless you. I'll see you tomorrow night on Fox. Be well.